Shamli, I see 6:58. Let's roll at 7.
Yes, we will.
Great.
So we are going live now. In just next couple of minutes, we will be live at exact 7 p.m.
Great.
Thank you.
Hello, Sukhdev ji. How are you? Sukhdev Sahab.
Sir, I think he's muted.
Okay.
In fact, I can't see Sukhdev ji on the panel. Where is he?
So his camera went off and he was muted, I think.
He was here about 10 minutes back, but I can't see him anymore.
He's there.
He's there. He's coming back now. Yeah.
Hello, Thorat Sahab. How are you?
सर नमस्कार. गुड इवनिंग सर.
Good evening.
आप
good
कैसे
evening.
हैं? मैं ठीक हूँ.
बढ़िया बढ़िया बढ़िया. आपको ठीक ही रहना चाहिए.
अच्छा हुआ आपको देखा है, मुलाकात नहीं हो पाई.
We're still waiting for Neeraj. Could Ashish check with him? And in the meanwhile, to all the speakers, Mr. Sibal, Professor Thorat, General Shah, and Mr. Chaudhary, Mudiji. Just one quick thing, while the webinar is on, the Q&A and chat on the panel will be on and people can directly ask questions. So feel free to, if you want to respond on those channels, feel free to do that throughout the webinar as well.
Okay, we are live now. So that's Shamli.
Let's get started. Okay, good evening, everyone. And on behalf of All India Professionals Congress Delhi, a very warm welcome to all of our panelists today, as well as everybody who has joined us across our multiple platforms. Without further ado, we want to dive right in. To start with, I'd like to welcome Mr. Yogesh Sachdeva, President of AIPC Delhi, to please give a welcome note and introduce all our eminent speakers today. Yogesh ji.
You're muted, Yogesh ji. You're muted. Yogesh ji, you're muted.
Okay, thank you for telling me that. We are all censored by the government, actually. On behalf of All India Professionals Congress, I welcome everyone today for attending this session. The All India Professionals Congress is India's first political platform focused on the needs and aspirations of working professionals and entrepreneurs in the country. The idea of AIPC germinated from the assessment that professionals in today's India are disconnected from politics, a stark reality from a couple of decades after India's independence. AIPC is a key department of the Indian National Congress. Coming to today's discussion, the present government neither acts or nor does it think, either or before, after or before the act. It acts to act and then tries to cover the front and the rear. It is a government of perception management. For professionals like us, it gives us enough opportunities to debate, think whether it's demonetization, GST or now COVID. And today's topic is another debacle which they have thrown at the nation. Unfortunately, if a supreme leader had appeared in university exams, hopefully he would have appreciated the issues a little more at hand. So today we have a topic, university examinations on COVID-19, a feasibility analysis. To discuss this very important issue, I have been given the task of introducing some very eminent personalities who actually need no introduction. But I'll still, go ahead and do the job assigned to me. We have Shri Kapil Sibal, who is the former HRD minister, presently MP Rajya Sabha, and a senior advocate. I'm thankful to you, sir, for being present whenever we invited you and requested you to be on our panels.
Pleasure.
We have Professor S.K. Thorat, former chairperson of UGC and a professor emeritus at JNU. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We have Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shahji, who is a former Vice Chancellor at AMU. We welcome you, sir.
Yeah.
We have amongst us Mr. Neeraj Kundan, who is the National President, National Students Union of India, to represent the students' cause and their viewpoint. Welcome, Neeraj ji.
Thank you, sir, and hello to everyone.
Thank you. We have Shri Anil Chaudhary, the President of Delhi Pradesh Congress Committee, who has agreed to join along with his team this panel. Anil ji, most welcome to this AIPC session.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. And we have Shri Mudit Agarwal ji, Mr. Jayakishan, Mr. Abhishek Dutt, and Mehdi Ali ji, all VPs at DPCC, who have, helped us in many occasions. Then we have Shri Salman Sos, who's an economist, media panelist at AICC, author and deputy chairman of All India Professionals Congress. Welcome, Salman. Then we have Alim Javeri. As the name suggests, he's a jewel in the crown, the CEO of AIPC. Shamli, please continue. Over to you.
Thank you, Yogesh ji. Before we dive into our discussion for today, we are privileged to have Shri Anil Chaudhary with us. So I would just invite him to say a few words to the gathering before we move to the topic.
Thank you, Shamli ji. सर्वप्रथम मैं योगेश जी और पूरी टीम को इस गंभीर विषय को लेकर के आज जो तमाम एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, खासतौर से आदरणीय कपिल सिब्बल साहब, आदरणीय हमारे वरिष्ठ सांसद भी हैं, वकील भी हैं, एंड उनके साथ हमारे युवा साथी नीरज जी, खासतौर पर का जो रोल रहा है इस मुद्दे को लेकर के, उसके लिए मैं नीरज जी का भी शुक्रिया करता हूं। साथ ही साथ आदरणीय शाह साहब और थरोट साहब का मैं अभिनंदन, स्वागत। मैं सिर्फ तमाम साथियों को इस चीज़ के लिए धन्यवाद के साथ साथ, क्योंकि इतना बड़ा गंभीर विषय है जहां तमाम छात्रों का जो भविष्य हो दाव पर है, एंड जिस विषय को लेकर के आज AIPC कांग्रेस ने ये ऑनलाइन एक तरह से प्रोग्राम के माध्यम से ये बताने की कोशिश की जाएगी कि किस तरह की दिक्कतें हैं, उसके लिए सभी का आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। सवाल ये है कि जिस तरह से UGC ने जो आदेश दिया है और एक तरफ स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स ने जिस तरह से आदेश अपने लोकल यूनिवर्सिटीज के को जारी किया है, उसमें कई तरह की परिस्थितियां उभर कर के आई हैं। लोगों को, बच्चों के लिए आगे बड़ा संकट का विषय। मुझे लगता है बहुत सारे छात्रों के सवाल हैं जिनके जवाब और जिनको लेकर के जो कंफ्यूजन्स हैं, आज आप तमाम साथियों को सुनेंगे, अपने जो प्रश्न हैं वो भी उठाएंगे। लेकिन मैं इतना जरूर कहूंगा, ये बड़ा गंभीर विषय है और दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी से हम लोग सब पढ़े हैं, और दिल्ली में खास तौर से दो तरह से, एक सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं एंड दिल्ली के अंतर्गत चाहे IP यूनिवर्सिटीज के तहत जो कॉलेजेस हैं, एक बड़ा संकट खड़ा हुआ है। एक तरफ तो बच्चों को एग्जाम में छूट दी जा रही है, दूसरी तरफ UGC ने जिस तरह से सितंबर तक एग्जाम करने की बात कही है, तो सवाल ये उठता है कि आने वाले समय में उन छात्रों के लिए बड़ा संकट खड़ा होगा जो एग्जाम दे करके आगे आ रहा है और जो एग्जाम नहीं दे पाया है। सो इस तरह के काफी मुद्दे रहेंगे। दूसरा, देश के अंदर भी काफी भौगोलिक स्थिति आप सभी जानते हैं किस तरह के हालात हैं, और अभी हम बात करें वर्तमान में तो जगह जगह पे फ्लड आ रही हैं, पूरा जल भराव है, पुल टूट रहे हैं, आदिवासी क्षेत्र हो या खास तौर से असम, बिहार, उत्तर प्रदेश या अन्य ऐसी भौगोलिक स्थितियां जहां पे सिग्नल का इशू है, या आज भी देश के अंदर 2G और 3G पे जो बच्चे या मोबाइल पे बात करते हैं तो वहां सिग्नल का इशू है। घर में चाहे डिवाइस की हम बात करें, ये बड़े चैलेंजेस हैं। बच्चों के एक तरह से डिप्रेसिंग वाली स्थिति भी है एग्जाम की तैयारी को लेकर के। तमाम ऐसी समस्याएं हैं जो छात्रों के सामने खड़ी है। तो मैं समझता हूँ इस गंभीर विषय पे आज जो चर्चा आप लोग करेंगे, मुझे उम्मीद है कि सरकार इन चीजों से कुछ ना कुछ संज्ञान लेगी, और खासतौर से आदरणीय कपिल सिब्बल साहब ने हमेशा HRD मिनिस्ट्री में रहते हुए भी जो काम किए हैं उससे कोई अछूता नहीं है, सब जानते हैं। और आप जिस भूमिका में, मैं समझता हूँ आज बहुत उन छात्रों की बातों को आप यहाँ समझेंगे, उसके समाधान के लिए सरकार से भी आग्रह करेंगे। इसके लिए मैं खासतौर से सचदेवा जी का, पूरी टीम के पुनः धन्यवाद करता हूँ, और आपने मुझे मौका दिया। दिल्ली प्रदेश कांग्रेस कमेटी की तरफ से मैं आप सभी का आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। मेरे साथी वाइस प्रेसिडेंट्स भी मौजूद हैं। इसीलिए हमने कि इस लड़ाई में NSUI का बहुत अहम रोल रहा है, और मैं NSUI परिवार का एक छात्र भी रहा हूं, और वहां से यहां तक की जो जर्नी है, दिल्ली प्रदेश कांग्रेस कमेटी के अध्यक्ष के तौर पर आदरणीय राहुल जी ने जिम्मेवारी दी, इसी तरह NSUI की भी जिम्मेवारी मैंने निभाई है 2000 के बीच में। तो मैं आप सभी का एक बार पुनः आभार व्यक्त करता हूं, और शामली जी से गुजारिश कि इस कार्यक्रम को हम आगे बढ़ाएं। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद अनिल जी। हम अपना कार्यक्रम शुरू करने से पहले 2 मिनट स्पेंड करना चाहते हैं टॉकिंग अबाउट AIPC, so that the people who have joined us from across the country get to know a little bit about AIPC. So I'm going to invite Mr. Salman Soos, who's the Deputy Chairman of AIPC, and Alim Javeri, who's the COO of AIPC, to talk a little bit about us. Salman, over to you.
Thank you, Shamli. I won't take too much time. Alim will talk about AIPC. On behalf of Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who's our chairman, and on behalf of the entire AIPC, I want to thank this eminent panel, Sibyl Saab, Thorat Saab, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah Saab, और नीरज कुंदन जी, और मुझे बड़ी खुशी है कि हमारे DPCC के President Anil जी हमारे साथ हैं. And I would request our Delhi team that at a future date, we should get our Delhi leadership to join us and tell us what they have in mind for professionals and how we can help our Delhi team. AIPC is not, obviously AIPC is a department of the Congress Party, but this is a platform not just for Congress voices. We also invite non-Congress voices so that we learn from them as well and try and also influence them a little bit. But today I'm looking forward to a great discussion. Hopefully we'll get some different views on how we can proceed forward. So over to Alim.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure. I want to thank you all very much for joining us here today. I won't take too much time. I just want to briefly describe to you the vision, rationale, and intention behind the All India Professionals Congress. As many of my colleagues in Delhi have stated, the AIPC is a one-of-a-kind platform for professionals to participate actively towards the advancement of progressive politics. But it's not the original platform. The original platform for professionals in politics dates back to before India. That platform was the Indian National Congress. We draw our inspiration from the luminaries since before India's independence, during India's independence, and after independence, the great lawyers, the great academics, the great journalists, the great industrialists, all these professionals who gave up very lucrative careers, very lucrative chances at a very comfortable and a very easy life to champion the call for service. So we pay our homage to those professionals with everything that we do, because we seek to bring their value, their passion into the 21st century. So towards that end, I'm very grateful to all of you for joining us here today. The AIPC is a department of the Indian National Congress. We function almost like a Rotary Club within the Indian National Congress for professionals. This department is run by professionals, it's for professionals, fully employed, tax-paying professionals living and working in India. We don't ask too much of our people. We give you the platform to be able to advance yourself, your passions, and your ideas in a way in which you're comfortable. Some of our professionals are very political. We are very happy with that. Some of them are very professional. We're very happy with that. Most of them are politically professional. Many of our professionals champion causes that are close to them, particularly the industries, particularly the local areas. And I'm pleased to say that AIPC's partnership with Delhi Pradesh Congress Committee is one of the strongest that we've got in India. It gives me great pleasure to ensure and to welcome each and every one of you here today. I'd also like to make a special mention to the Honorable President of the Delhi Pradesh Congress Committee, the Honorable representatives of the DPCC, Sibyl Saab, and all the great luminaries who've joined us today, and to say thank you for all the support you've given us. My name is Alim Javeri. I'm the Chief Operations Officer of the All India Professionals Congress. I'm a young congressman and I'm proud of it. And I encourage you all to partner with us and be professionals for progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Salman, and thank you, Alim. For everybody who's joining us, if you're interested to know more about AIPC or to join us, there is a link in the chat box where you can leave your details both on Zoom as well as on Facebook. So without further ado, let's now dive into the topic of the day. What really is at stake when we talk about conducting exams in the middle of the greatest pandemic in recent human history? I will invite Mr. Kunal Vajani to please set the context, talk about what the UGC guidelines are and the various aspects around it, so that we can then start the discussion. Kunal.
Thank you, Shamli. Good evening, everyone, and I thank the AIPC for having me. It is for the first time that I have chosen to come out openly to be a proud congressman, and also glad that I am amidst my own senior, Mr. Kapil Sibal, who has not only been the former HRD minister, but also fights the cause for the students with regards to this university examination. As regards the UGC notification, the notification is a macro level decision. It's unfortunate that the government of India, sitting at New Delhi, took a decision giving the universities which come under its aegis, this is the central government universities, giving them no option but to conduct an examination prior to the end of September, completely sans the entire pandemic situation, completely dehorse the understanding that there is going to be various lockdowns. There are ongoing lockdowns. The city of Bangalore has got into lockdown. City of Calcutta is in lockdown. Pune is in lockdown where there is no grocery or medical shop which is open. Sans all of these situations, amidst this pandemic, there is a pressure put on these central universities. The entire decision of UGC is also completely away from what an expert university like IIT in the country has taken to proceed to promote the students, even in the final year, on the basis of their internal assessments and some internal grading systems. I don't want to take much time because we have a very, very distinguished panel. It is an unprecedented situation. The pandemic has affected a lot of lives, and we would like to take the advice. We would like to understand from the experts amidst us as to how feasible these exams are going to be if they are proceeded with as insisted upon. Over to you, Shamli. Thank you very much for having me at AIPC.
Thank you. If we could start the discussion with some opening remarks from each of our four speakers, where they can share their initial thoughts about what the situation is right now with the UGC guidelines. Mr. Sibal, I'd like to start with you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be here. Actually, this discussion has come at a very appropriate moment, and I believe personally that it's going to be almost impossible, even though the university has decided to go ahead with these exams. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I think our entire education system is inherently discriminatory. The system itself is inherently, forget about open book examinations. The education system is inherently discriminatory for the simple reason that you have elitist schools, elitist educational institutions, and most of India is not part of that elitist system. When you come to a digital India, that's even much worse because all of India is not connected. So in fact, it's even more discriminatory to even think of an open book examination. How many children are familiar with digital India? How many children can get connected through Wi-Fi and sit for the open book examination? Many of them don't even have materials with them at the moment because remember the semester started in January and it was to end in May, and in between COVID happened. So therefore, essentially there were no classes in March and April. And when COVID happened, many of these students who were in Delhi must have gone back to their homes. Many of them come from rural areas. Many of them must not have carried the materials with them. And I'm not talking about PWD students. I'm not talking about the economically weaker sections. Even otherwise, many students would not have carried the materials with them. They don't have access to the materials. They can't come back to Delhi. In many states, because of a lockdown, they can't come back to Delhi. If they come back to Delhi, they expose themselves to getting infected by COVID. Many parents would not like them to come back to Delhi because life is more important than exams. At the same time, they don't want them to lose a year. But having said all that, I just want to point out certain basic data, which I think is not in the public domain. And that is that less than 27% of households have at least one member with an internet access. Less than 27%. That means 73% don't have internet access. Then of the poorest 20% in India, poorest 20% households, only 9% have an internet connection. 9%. So what about those poor students who have to sit for an examination from outside of Delhi? How are they going to sit for this examination? 55,000 villages have no mobile network. 55,000 villages. 32%, even where there is a network, there is a signal problem. And you know, the university says that people can go to the CSC centers and sit for the examinations. The fact of the matter is that CSC centers have a very low bandwidth. So the speed is very low. It's about 128 Mbps. The result is that only one person can sit in that CSC center. If two persons sit, he'll not be able to sit for the exam. So if there are more than one person in a CSC center, they will not be able to sit for the exam. Next, there are about 11,000 CSC centers which don't work. 11 to 12,000. In fact, we've given a list of these 12,000, 11 to 12,000 centers to the High Court in the petition that is pending. They don't work at all. Then, of course, the government of India has this BharatNet program. In other words, they want to connect all the 250,000 gram panchayats with fiber optic network. Now, of the total 250,000 gram panchayats, only 228,000 have been connected. I've only connected. It's not that it's functional. They've been only connected. Then you have to have a Wi-Fi connection with each household. That Wi-Fi connection is not available. So apart from the fact that 22,000 gram panchayats are not connected, of the ones that are connected, the Wi-Fi is not available. I'll give you a small data about Karnal. Tribune carried out a survey in Karnal in June 2020, where they said that of the 1,368 CSCs, only 559 were functional. The rest were not functional. That's the infrastructure issue that confronts us today. How is any child to sit for this exam? And if you apply that to PWD students, the situation is much worse because many of them just don't have the data, don't even have the software to access the data. That software is not functional. Then, of course, there is a lack of training. Teachers are not trained in IT network. Students are not trained. There's a possibility of questioning the integrity of the exam because you're sitting in an exam in some CSC center that there's an integrity issue. Then about 600 higher educational institutions have been converted into COVID centers. 600 higher educational institutions have been converted into COVID centers. And the chairman of the UGC himself, who heads the university in Haryana, is not holding his exams on open book in Haryana, though he wants to hold them in Delhi for Delhi University. And of course, as you know, statutorily, the academic council and the executive council have to be consulted. All this is taking place through a special committee that has been set up in Delhi University. So this is an absolute disaster. And to expose students, to discriminate against students, to deny students the opportunity, a full opportunity to sit for the exam, in the absence of materials, I think that this is an elitist government, an elitist UGC, an elitist HRD who has no idea about India. That's my preliminary observation.
Thank you, Mr. Sibal. Those are some very staggering statistics that you shared. Professor Thorat, if you guys would move to you for your remarks.
And of course, sorry about Jammu and Kashmir, I forgot to mention. In Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, there is no 4G. What's going to happen in Jammu and Kashmir? Salman, I should have mentioned that, sorry, earlier.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, I think the advice from the central government, it is said that it's a compulsory advice from the central government is to hold the online examination and also offline examination, that is to hold an examination on the campuses. Now, we have closed down the university for a simple reason that we want to avoid the physical proximity in order not to spread the COVID. Now, I would not like to give the data, but everything has been given by Sibalji, that how the interconnectivity is so poor. I have also collected some data. I have also collected some data, but I would not repeat because it exactly support what Kapil Sibalji has said, that there is no equal access to internet. So neither the online teaching is possible. Forget about the examination. So online examination is out of question. As far as examination on the campus is concerned, the reason for which we have closed down the universities, that is not to bring the student on the campus. We are precisely doing the same thing now. Now imagine the student have gone to their hometowns, villages, small town, from one state to the another. Now we are asking them to come back. Now imagine they will have to take a bus, they will have to take a train for a day or 2 or 3, come to the campus. They will have to stay in the hostel. The hostels are not vacant. They are occupied by COVID patient. The Minister of Education, Minister of Maharashtra has openly said that. We do not know how the university will make the arrangement. And if you have to sanitize the entire examination hall, whether it is possible or not. So I think what we are doing, that we are exposing the student to great danger. In Karnataka, they tried for the school children and 40 children got infected. So I think this is impossible. It is not possible to take the offline examination on the campus. But there is one aspect I will like to mention, is that all students are not affected equally. Kapil Sibalji has rightly pointed out the elitist element of this decision making. You see, the most affected section is the small self-employed, informal worker who were working on without contract, and the casual laborer. I have looked at the statistic of the total graduate and the postgraduate student in this country. About 40% are from these 3 poor sections who are really struggling now. How to earn the income, how to consume, avoid malnutrition, and just to survive. Now, the children who are college graduate, they are also affected by the same atmosphere. They don't have a place to work. There is no enough light, or the density of population inside the house is so low, and they don't have books, as has been rightly said. They have surrendered their room if they go back. So if you want to take an examination, they are not prepared for that. In fact, from January to March, there less teaching. March onward, there was no online teaching as such. If you ask them to teach, take examination, their grade will be lower than what they got in last 2 semesters. The argument of the central government is that we want to give a degree which is merit-based degree. Now here is a very large section of the student will take the examination, and under a lot of pressure and psychological tension, in all probability, their grade will be less than what they will get in the last 5 semesters or 2 years. The cohort committee therefore rightly mentioned that calculate the final grade on the basis of the average of the 5 semesters and 2 years, and that will be fairly equitable, it will be good justice to the student. It will be fair to everybody. And also cohort committee also suggested those who want to improve their grade after the situation is normal, they can do it. I don't understand why this recommendation is not accepted. There is a other thing. Look at the children of the migrant worker. Can they come back? You know, the pathetic show that we have seen demonstration that we have seen on the road. Their children will come back, take examination, and they will get the good grade. I think we have to have a fair game for the students who are in a better place in big cities, who have health facilities, who can go and in a protected atmosphere give the examination, from large number of those students who are in a situation where they cannot take exam. There are there are several surveys. The Association of the Bombay University teacher took the survey just to get in touch with the student for some kind of if there is examination. They discovered that almost 50% of the student they could not get in touch with. Some of the students, they had stopped communicating through mobile because they did not have money to pay for the monthly bill. Some of them have sold their mobile. I talked to one of the university in Pune University. The pro-vice chancellor told me that almost 65% of the student did not have facilities for online teaching. Forget about examination. And in villages and small town, failure of electricity. So I think this is completely an impossible situation. The best thing would be to award the degree to the final student based on the average gate of the 5 semester or 2 years, and also promote the first year student or second year student based on their own performance. We are not doing any injustice to them. We are evaluating based on their own past performance, and this will be fair to everybody. And on the top of that, if they want to improve it, they can improve it after the situation is normal. So I think this decision of the central government, God knows what consequences it will create. I have a feeling that there will be a lot of dropout. Many students would not go because they will not be in a position to take examination. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Thorat. General Shah, if you could also share your views.
Yes, good evening. My observations are based on my experience at Aligarh Muslim University, and 3 schools we are running for impoverished children in the slums of UP, in Sardhana, my hometown, in Saharanpur and Muzaffarnagar. There are 3 methods by which we can address this task. One is, of course, cancel the examination. I think that's a very populist and what the students are looking for. Cancel the examination. What is going to be the problem?
Sorted. Okay.
There'll be a huge backlog of examinees. I think there's some conversation.
Abhishek ji, can you please mute yourself, Abhishek ji?
Yeah. 1 second, I'll just do it.
Okay, cancelling examinations is going to result in a huge backlog of examinees. Already the pressure is on. Secondly, the provisional certificates which is intended to give will not be welcome to employees. Why should they employ anybody with a provisional certificate? What happens if he doesn't qualify? The next method is postpone the examination. I think that how long are you going to postpone it? It may take this COVID-19 may stretch on for 2-3 years. So how long are you going to keep postponing examinations? Based on my experience with first generation learners in my hometown Sardhana, in the school which we are running, I found these first generation learners are pretty smart. We underestimate their capabilities. All of them are now savvy with smartphones. So we carried out online classes on smartphones with using Zoom. We carried out the examinations. I'll tell you how we did it. And it has worked pretty satisfactorily. So we got this idea from what the United Kingdom had done with the medical students. They had an open examination modified. That means they gave 3 hours to the students. They had to answer 150 questions. So you have to be pretty smart, even if you wanted to use unethical means to try and answer them. Now, what we learned from these students from my village is that most of them have smartphones. Most families have smartphones. I found this problem in AMU, where a student used to come to me and say, okay, sir, I can't pay the fees. So I used to say, okay, let me see your phone. And a student who was saying that he could not pay his fees had a pretty smart phone, which was expensive, probably 15,000. So let's not take that excuse. So this digital divide can be overcome by the use of television or by the use of smartphones. How? We carry out classes by online on smartphones and also examinations. How? The time is given to the students that the examination will be at so-and-so time. The questions can either be audio or a written format. Now the the integrity issue is overcome not by the students punching in their answers. No. They have to write down. They write down the answers, project that photograph of the answers back to their teacher. So the integrity issue can be taken care of by giving a large number of questions, making the students write down on a sheet of paper, sending it back to the examiner. I know this would involve a huge task, but all these can be overcome. The digital divide has been broken by the smartphone and the apps presently available. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, General Shah, for that alternate view. I think it's interesting to have that point of view as well. I would like to call Mr. Neeraj Kundar now to share his views.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank all the AIPC team for choosing this hot topic. And I would like to congratulate you all. And it's my honor to be a part in this program, where a person like Sir Kapil Sibal sir, who himself is an institution, and we have sir with us. See, I will talk like a student only. There is a huge discussion on this topic. NSUA was the first organization to ask, and we demanded this on 26th of April for the mass promotion of the students. And we were deliberately trolled also on that day social media. And frankly speaking, हमारे खुद के leaders भी इससे उस टाइम पे सहमत नहीं थे, but हमने ये stand जो है 26 अप्रैल को first time जो है हमने ये stand लिया था. अब मैं आपको इसके आगे इसके step by step बताता हूँ. और इसके recently ही एक Speak Up for Students INC के social media के साथ NSUA ने एक campaign चलाया, और जिसमें हमें massive मतलब response मिला, जिसमें more than 8 लाख स्टूडेंट्स ने जो है वो ट्वीट किया. और मैं आपको ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि इसमें ना केवल स्टूडेंट्स इन्वॉल्व हैं, इसमें पेरेंट्स भी जो हैं इन्वॉल्व हैं. इट वाज नॉट ओनली द हैशटैग दैट वाज ऑन द नंबर 1 इन आवर कंट्री, बट वर्ल्ड वाइड भी ये जो हैशटैग है ये 4th नंबर पे हमारा रहा. सो इससे ये चीज साबित होती है कि ये जो स्टूडेंट का जो इशू है ये एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है जो आज की डेट में बन चुका है. मैं बाकी बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटीज की अभी बात नहीं करूंगा. अभी आज हम एक ऐसी यूनिवर्सिटी की बात करते हैं, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी की बात करते हैं, जो सबकी करीब वाली एक यूनिवर्सिटी जो है मानी जाती है और प्रेस्टिजियस यूनिवर्सिटी जो है भी है. मैं किसी ट्राइबल एरिया की छत्तीसगढ़ की यूनिवर्सिटी की बात और इधर उत्तर प्रदेश और मध्य प्रदेश में ऐसी यूनिवर्सिटी की बात नहीं करूंगा. मैं आपके सामने स्टैटिस्टिक्स शो करना चाहूंगा दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के. दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में डूटा ने एक सर्वे किया है. उस सर्वे के हिसाब से 33.7 स्टूडेंट्स were not able to attend the online classes. 38% students were not able to get a reading material too. Only 15% of students have laptop in Delhi University. This statistics is about Delhi University. Delhi University खुद ही कहती है कि 50% उनके जो students हैं वो reserve category से आते हैं. और ये भी एक statistics है कि उन 50% में से 93% जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं जो रिजर्व कैटेगरी से आते हैं, बैकवर्ड क्लासेस से और बाकी श्रेणी से आते हैं, 93% ऑफ दैट स्टूडेंट्स डोंट हैव इंटरनेट एक्सेसिबिलिटी, और यू कैन से डोंट हैव लैपटॉप, दे डोंट हैव मोबाइल फोन. और एज कपिल सर आल्सो रेज दैट वैलिड इशू, आई आल्सो कम फ्रॉम जम्मू कश्मीर. इन स्टेट लाइक जम्मू कश्मीर आल्सो हियर इज नॉट 4G, यहाँ पे भी 2G है अभी तक. और नॉर्थ ईस्ट जैसी स्टेट्स में भी 4G जो है वो काम जो है वो नहीं करता है, वहां पे भी 2G जो काम करता है. सर अभी बात कर रहे थे, मैं आपकी नॉलेज में बताना चाहूंगा कि केरला में एक ट्राइबल लड़की ने सुसाइड सिर्फ इसलिए कर दिया जस्ट बिकॉज उसके फादर के पास 700 रुपीज नहीं थे कि वो टीवी सेट को रिपेयर करा सके और उस रिपेयर के बाद वो जो है अपनी बच्चे को शिक्षा दिला सके और वो आगे की जो एग्जाम की जो है वो तैयारी करा सके. मैं इसी दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के सामने आपके सामने एक और स्टैटिस्टिक्स लाना चाहूंगा. इसी दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी ने अभी थोड़े दिन पहले मॉक ट्रायल भी किया था जो वो फेलियर था, और लास्ट 2 सालों में दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी की वेबसाइट 2 बारी जो है वो हैक हो चुकी है. सो सबसे पहले ये ऑनलाइन एग्जाम लेना और ये ऑनलाइन आप कुछ भी इस पे कराएं, तो इसी पे एक सबसे बड़ा क्वेश्चन मार्क है कि उसकी जो सिक्योरिटी है वो उस पे एक बहुत बड़ा जो है क्वेश्चन मार्क जो है आज के इस प्रेजेंट टाइम में है। तो इसी डिमांड की जो स्टूडेंट्स की डिमांड है, और दूसरी बड़ी बात मैं आप लोगों के सामने को बताना चाहूंगा कि जो अभी हम लोग जो जिसके बारे में चर्चा कर रहे हैं, और उसका एक बड़ा पॉइंट जो है, जो खासकर जिस तरीके से अभी हमने बात की माइग्रेंट लेबर से आते हो या इकोनॉमिकली पुअर जो फैमिली से आते हो, when the UGC is saying that they will take the exam in the month of September, so that eventually means the result will come not less than December or January. So इसका मतलब ये है कि हम एक साल का स्टूडेंट्स का एकेडमिक ईयर वेस्ट कर रहे हैं। और आप 2 मिनट के लिए उन पेरेंट्स का सोचिए, उन पुअरेस्ट फैमिली का सोचिए जिनकी फैमिली के बड़ी मुश्किल से उन्होंने इस साल की जो फीस है वो उन्होंने अपने स्टूडेंट्स की पे की होगी। और एक साल का एकेडमिक ईयर वेस्ट करना नॉट ओनली मींस कि आप हम उनके एक साल के एकेडमिक ईयर वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, बट वी आर आल्सो पुशिंग देम इकोनॉमिकली बैकवर्ड्स। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा पॉइंट है कि जिसमें जब हम एग्जाम की भी बात कर रहे हैं कि सितंबर महीने में एग्जाम होंगे, और उसका ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा जो डीमेरिट है। और हम ये भी बात रखना चाहेंगे कि जब देश के हमारे प्रेस्टिजियस इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, आईआईटीज जैसे ने जब ये बात कही है कि उन्होंने भी स्टूडेंट्स को मास प्रमोशन दी है, जबकि वहां पे टेक्निकल एजुकेशन है, उन्होंने फाइनल ईयर्स के स्टूडेंट्स को भी मास प्रमोशन दी है। और एक लास्ट में एक ऑप्शन ये भी रखी है कि इफ ए फाइनल ईयर स्टूडेंट इज नॉट सेटिस्फाइड, ही और शी कैन गिव द एग्जाम। जब भी सिचुएशन जो है वो नॉर्मल होगी, he or she can give the exam. So हमें लगता है कि अभी जो पर्टिकुलर टाइम है, सबसे ज्यादा अनसर्टेनिटी जो है वो स्टूडेंट्स फर्टर्निटी में है। दे आर टोटली ब्लैक कि उनके फ्यूचर में आगे क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा। अभी सितंबर में भी एग्जाम होंगे नहीं होंगे। और आई विल स्ट्रेट अवे से दैट कि जिस तरीके से गवर्नमेंट ने, यूजीसी ने बड़ी आसानी से कह दिया कि फर्स्ट ईयर और सेकेंड ईयर के हम एग्जाम लेंगे, थर्ड ईयर को नहीं लेंगे, तो इसमें कहीं ना कहीं बहुत बड़ा उनका एक रीजन ये भी हो सकता है कि दे इवेंचुअली वांट, वो खुद ही चाहते हैं कि जो स्टूडेंट्स का इस साल का एकेडमिक ईयर वेस्ट हो जाए। और उनको पता आगे आने वाले समय में आर्थिक मंदी जो है इस देश में आने पड़ेगी, और एक स्टैटिक्स जो है ग्रेजुएट का आने वाले समय में जो है बनेगा। तो उस स्टैटिक्स को भी रोकने के लिए ये हम मानते हैं कि एक कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है कि इस तरीके से भी स्टूडेंट्स को जो है उनके राइट्स को जो है छीना जा रहा है। सो आई एम वेरी ग्लैड कि अभी ये एक बहुत बड़ा टॉकिंग पॉइंट जो है वो सोसाइटी में और हमारे देश में बन चुका है। और मुझे ये लगता है कि सरकार को जल्द से जल्द इसके ऊपर स्टूडेंट्स की फ्यूचर को देखते हुए, उनका एकेडमिक ईयर ना वेस्ट हो, उसको देखते हुए मुझे लगता है कि स्टूडेंट्स के पास परफॉर्मेंस के और कोई भी मेजर को अडॉप्ट करके उनको मास प्रमोशन देनी चाहिए। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you, everyone. I think we've had a wide variety of views on multiple things, but I want to talk about the digital divide aspect that I think Mr. Sibal talked about, Professor, so all of you actually talked about, and General Shah had a different point of view. So if Mr. Sibal, you could maybe address the point of view that General Shah has shared about the digital divide.
Well, you know, the fact of the matter is now, I think General Shah has told you about his experience. But he should know that on the 12th of June and on the 25th of June, university teachers from Delhi University wrote letters to the Professor Vinay Gupta, who is the Dean of Examination. And these teachers that I'm talking about came from Miranda House, Zakir Hussain Delhi, Lakshmi Bai College, Daulat Ram College, Janki Devi, Hindu College, Gargi College, Ramjas College, Mata Sundari College, Indraprastha College, and all of them said the same thing, that it is too discriminatory to force kids who don't have the necessary wherewithal to sit for the exam. You see, it's in this hour of distress, it is pathetic on the part of the Delhi University. This is a Miranda House teacher writing. And another representation was given on the 25th of June by members of the Academic Council of Delhi University. And these are about 40 members that I have got here who have signed this. So the question is that within the teaching community also, there is great concern, and the basis of that concern is the digital divide. Now, you know, the CSC centers that have been assigned, General talked about smartphones. The fact is that if you don't have Wi-Fi connectivity, how is that smartphone going to work? If you don't have the Wi-Fi, and I've given you data on the Wi-Fi, that there is lack of connectivity. Then when the CSC centers are named, they are only named through addresses. There are no telephone numbers. So if you have about 6 CSC centers in your district, which center you have to go to, you don't know. You can't contact on the phone. So there are great difficulties on the ground. I'm sure that the institutions that the general was talking about are in his own area. Certainly, the young students must have been trained, and I have no doubt that if the young students get an opportunity, even on the weaker sections, they'll do exceptionally well. But as Thorat Saab pointed out, that 40% in India, 40% of the students belong to that category who have no wherewithal. What's going to happen to them? See, don't think, and the point that you raised about a degree is valid. So we are not saying that there should be no exam. We are saying you promote them, give them a provisional degree. And then when things become normal, you can conduct classes, you can hold an exam at that point in time. But the fact of the matter is, in these circumstances, with the COVID where it is, it's impossible to hold the exam. Even if you want it, it will not be held. In fact, the Delhi University teacher said that we contacted students and 90% of them said that we cannot participate in this. They don't want cancellation of the examination, but they are finding it impossible to participate in the examination. They don't have the materials with them. How do you get the materials to them? And how do they come to Delhi? And where are they going to stay? And why should they be exposed? I mean, we as ministers of the government of India, people in the public are not willing to go out, and you want to expect students to travel hundreds of kilometers to sit for an exam when we are not willing to go out of our houses? What kind of approach is this? Isn't this sort of completely anathema to the concept of a just society where we treat everybody with respect and giving all an opportunity, an equal opportunity? That's the basis of the very concept of equity, which is at the heart of democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Sipal. I think Professor Thorat, you were trying to say something, please. You're on mute, sir.
No, I think I would like to clarify on the point which the Vice Chancellor, former Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University said. See, the first thing is nobody is saying that don't hold examination. The committee, cohort committee, which was set up by the government to see whether the examination can be held, came with a suggestion that the student should be given degree by having a proper assessment. The even I think University Grant Commission, the cohort committee and some of the state, they have taken a position. They are not saying that we are not holding examination. What they are saying is that we don't hold examination, but we grade the student on the basis of their performance in their last 5 semesters to the final student, or on the basis of their last 2-year performance, and give them the degree. And that degree will not be provisional. That will be a final degree given by the university, so that a student can go to USA if he or she want to take an admission, and it will be applicable universally for the country as a whole. So there is no question of discrimination that you are a COVID degree awardee or non-COVID degree awardee. So let me bring a very clarity on this, that the argument, those who are making the argument, is that hold the examination through evaluation on the basis of the past performance, which is fair enough. If you have taken the grade, some grade in the 5 semester, 1 semester will not improve your grade dramatically. There is no study which estimate how many % of the students have improved their grade or their grade have gone down. So that's the first point I would like to make. Nobody is saying that you should not hold examination on the basis of evaluation of the evaluation should be based on the basis of the past performance, and you get a valid degree.
Thank you, Professor Thorat. General Shah, would you like to address this? You're on mute. You're on mute.
with due respect to Mr. Kapil Sibal, he appointed me the Vice Chancellor of AMU. Sir, it has been my experience that when you want to institute a new measure, the most difficult thing in instituting a new measure is to get the old idea out. And it is because of lack of training of these teachers who you have mentioned that they are opposing this online examination. And secondly, I'd like to say, a smartphone doesn't need a Wi-Fi connection. I mean, my hometown doesn't have Wi-Fi, but the students are using it on 3G. So a Wi-Fi connection is not required. That's all.
Thank you. So
You don't have 3G in many places. You don't have 3G, you don't have 4G in many places in this country. And that's what has been found on the ground. And remember, on the 29th of April, this very university came to the conclusion that there cannot be an open book examination. There is a decision of the university, of the UGC, that there cannot be an open, it's not feasible to have an open book examination on the 29th of April of 2020. What has changed between 29th of April and today? In July, the situation has become worse. So if the university thought in April that they can't hold an exam, how is suddenly that situation changed in July?
You know, I will just add that the National Sample Survey on Higher Education 2015 and 16, there we get that in rural area, 15%, only 15% have computers. In urban area,
That's right.
Urban area, only 42% have computer. The worst is that in rural area, only 4.4% have internet facility. In urban area, 23%. And still worse is that even if you have it, only 17% in rural area have a capacity to use internet, and 43% in urban area. What are we talking about? Mr. Vice Chancellor, please, we are not talking about Aligarh. We are not talking about 3 villages. We are talking of country. We are talking of 60% of rural area, 70% of rural area, and 30% of urban area. So online teaching, and student can give examination, write long answered on the basis of the smartphone, and changing the examination for 1 year. Will it be fair? You are taking different examination in the last 2 years, and now you are introducing a different examination based on objective question. It will not work, please. I think the online examination is not possible. Let us accept that.
Let me give you another data. The University of Hyderabad carried out a survey on the digital divide issue amongst students. And of the 2,500 students surveyed, close to 90% said that they had a mobile phone, but only 37% said that they could access classes online. This is the reality. These are not surveys done by government. This is the university itself. So you can't look at urban India, apply those standards to rural India, and say children are smart enough that they'll be able to. This is nothing about old and new, Mr. Vice Chancellor. Nothing to do with old and new. It is something to do with the reality of a COVID situation and the absence of internet facilities. I want India to be digital, but we're not ready to be digital for many reasons.
So thank you to all of you for sharing your thoughts. We've talked a lot about the challenges with conducting the exams. I want to take a step back and actually question the very importance of the exam. So Professor Thorat, I think you recently argued in the letter that you'd written that cancelling exams would in reality not devalue them, but in fact uphold the integrity of the exams. So if you could elaborate on that, the very notion of holding exams and why is it so important? And also shed some light on alternate solutions that could be looked at, how, internal assessments, but what else?
You know, the main argument made by the government was that that by using the evaluation method suggested by Quad Committee, our degree, the merit of the degree will go down. But first, let there be a clarity that what cohort committee has suggested to the government was that for the final year student, take 5 semester or 2 year where there is yearly examination, take the average grade, give them the average grade in the 3rd year and give them the degree, a final degree. For promotion from 1st year to 2nd year or from semester to semester, do the same exercise, that take the average and give them the grade. Now, taking average is really, you are judging the student on the basis of his merit. That is the suggestion of that committee. Second thing, they say that despite all this, if some of the students who get the degree and after everything is become normal, if they want to improve their grade, they can do it. It's a win-win situation. This is the suggestion of the cohort committee. Now, but the government take a position, no, there has to be online examination. And if online, wherever online is not possible, have on-campus examination. Because if we are not evaluating on the basis of final examination, the degree value of the degree will go down, merit will go down, and they have compared it with other foreign universities. My feeling is that that's not the actual situation going to be. The actual situation is that if you are compelling the student to take an examination on campus, in a situation that we have, I have told you, bulk of the students come from a situation where they are under tensions now. It's a struggle for survival for this half of this 50% of the student, graduate and postgraduate. Kapil Sibalji has rightly pointed out, from January to March, less teaching. After March, there was no teaching. There was a teaching on online, very little. Now, in this situation, you are asking a student to take an examination. Now, if they take an examination, their marks will be obviously less than what they have performed during the last year. They are not giving examination best of their peace of mind, with the best preparation. So my feeling is that the performance of the student that will be reflected in the last year or last semester, if you take the on-campus examination, is likely to be lower than what they have achieved in the last 2 semesters. So the best idea would be that judge them on the basis of their own performance for 5 semesters and 2 years. This is fair for everybody, even for those who are suffering and those who are in a better position. But those who think that no, they could have got a better grade, there is opportunity for them. So it's a very sensible suggestion. So I feel that the grade will be lower down to a greater extent, and it will not be a justice to the student.
Thank you, Professor Thorat. A related question on the examination, and maybe I'll direct this to you, Mr. Sibal. With the UGC guidelines, what is the dynamic between state universities, central universities? Are the guidelines binding on both? What flexibility do state universities, for example, have at this point?
I believe state universities, many of them actually are doing exactly what Professor Thorat is talking about. Many of them have actually promoted students to the next class and giving them degrees based on their past performance. This has happened in Punjab as well. And many other states have adopted that. And nothing wrong with that. You want to, and if you want to improve your merit, you can sit for the exam. But I have a more fundamental question. Why do we wish to expose our children to COVID? Please answer that question. Is exam more important than life? Why should we expose our children? You don't want to expose the elderly. You say you're telling the elderly, don't go, if you're above 60, don't go out of the house. But you are telling your children to travel hundreds of kilometers to sit for an examination. It makes no sense. That question needs to be answered. And how is the university so callous, so mindless about the impact this would have on many families? I mean, many poor families, if the children get COVID, where would they go? And I don't know, the Vice Chancellor talked about a 15,000 rupee phone. I don't know how many families in this country can afford a 15,000 rupees smartphone. When the average income of a household in India of 700 million people in India is 10,000 rupees. How they afford a 15,000 rupees smartphone a child in the rural area is something that's mind-boggling.
Thank you, Mr. Sibbal. Neeraj, आपके पास, I think you talked about it कि one of the issues is the timing. जब हम एग्जाम्स को 4 महीने बाद कर रहे हैं, लोग जब तक पास होंगे तब तक 6 महीने हो जाएंगे, जब तक वो नौकरियां ढूंढ सकते हैं तब तक एंड दिस इज आल्सो अनसर्टेन राइट नाउ, वो और कितना पोस्टपोन हो सकता है इस वक्त कुछ नहीं पता. That's 6 to 12 months of lost opportunity for these students who come from poor households, who are already significantly impacted by the current situation, or household incomes have come down. So if you can talk, you are very close to the student community, about the domino effect of something like this on the student community a little bit more in detail.
First of all, मैं कपिल सर की ही बात को एक को आगे लेके जाना चाहूंगा. जो एक कॉमन स्टूडेंट जो है, आपको पता है स्टूडेंट जो है वो बात करता है, वो सबसे ज्यादा आज की डेट में यही बात कर रहा है कि भैया आप हमें ये बताइए कि भारत सरकार जो है वो पार्लियामेंट के लिए तो डिस्कशन खोल नहीं रहा है. पार्लियामेंट इस टाइम पे कोविड चल रहा है, और कोविड में तो मोदी जी को अपने मंत्रियों को बुला के उनकी रिपोर्ट लेनी चाहिए, उनके टेस्ट करवाने चाहिए कि भैया बताओ आपने कोविड में कितना काम किया और कितना काम नहीं किया. उस पे आने के लिए वो डर रहे हैं पार्लियामेंट में आने के लिए. तो भैया हमारी जिंदगियों के साथ खिलवाड़ क्यों किया जा रहा है? हम जब एग्जाम देने जाएंगे तो क्या हम कहीं ना कहीं ना केवल कि एक स्टूडेंट तो वो एक्सपोजर में कोविड पे आ रहा है, बट वो उसके साथ साथ जो है वो घर पर आके अपने पेरेंट्स को भी खतरे में डाल रहा है. और मैं ऑन रिकॉर्ड बात करना चाहूंगा, कर्नाटका में रिसेंटली एग्जाम हुआ जहां पे कितने स्टूडेंट जो है कोविड पॉजिटिव बताए गए. तो क्या सरकार जो है आज के इस समय में सबसे पहले इस चीज की गारंटी लेती है कि जो छात्रों का जो जीवन है और जो कोविड से उनको एक्सपोजर नहीं होगा? और लास्ट में मैं अपनी बात तो एक ही बात को कह के खत्म करना चाहूंगा, ये देश गांधी जी का देश है, और मैं गांधी जी के ही एक कोट को बात करके अपनी बात को खत्म करूंगा कि गांधी जी ने ही कहा था कि इस देश में जब भी कोई कानून बने तो वो कानून हमेशा पहले आदमी को छोड़कर इस देश के आखिरी आदमी को देखकर बनाया जाए कि उस कानून से क्या आखिरी आदमी को कोई फायदा होता है या नुकसान होता है. उस आखिरी आदमी को उसका फायदा होना चाहिए. तो जो ये एग्जाम की प्रक्रिया जो अभी HRD और जो UGC तैयार कर रही है ऑनलाइन एग्जाम की, खासकर मैं अगर बात करूं तो उस ऑनलाइन एग्जाम के लिए तो सबसे पहले मैं ये बताना चाहूंगा, 100% गारंटी से बताना चाहूंगा कि इस देश के जो आखिरी पीढ़ी होगी, आखिरी लाइन होगी, 100% ये उनके साथ नाइंसाफी होगी, ये एक्सेसिबिलिटी जो है वो उनके लिए नहीं होगी. और दूसरी एक बड़ी आश्चर्य की बात है, UGC ने खुद ही इस चीज को मान लिया कि फर्स्ट ईयर और सेकेंड ईयर के स्टूडेंट्स को बिना एग्जाम के प्रमोट कर सकते हैं, और थर्ड ईयर के स्टूडेंट्स को जो है उसके लिए हमारा एग्जाम लेना जरूरी है. मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है कि फर्स्ट ईयर में जो स्टूडेंट आया है उसका तो तब भी कोई पास्ट परफॉर्मेंस नहीं है कि हम उसको किस जरिए जो है हम उसकी एक्सेसिबिलिटी कर सकते हैं. वो सेकेंड ईयर में पता चल सकता है, सेकेंड ईयर वाले का फर्स्ट ईयर में पता चल सकता है, लेकिन जो ऑलरेडी थर्ड ईयर में आया है तो उसकी कहीं ना कहीं पास्ट परफॉर्मेंस तो होगी, फर्स्ट ईयर की होगी, सेकेंड ईयर की होगी, और इवन अब भी वो थर्ड ईयर में फाइनल ईयर में है तो फाइनल ईयर में भी उसने प्रैक्टिकल्स और इंटरनल्स कितनी ऐसी एग्जाम्स हैं जो दे दी होंगी. तो एक बहुत मतलब लगता है कि कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है कि अगर इनको कोई भी एक मेथड अडॉप्ट करना है जिस मेथड के तहत वो एवेल्युएट भी स्टूडेंट्स को कर सकते हैं. हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि स्टूडेंट्स खुद ही चाह रहे हैं कि नहीं हम एग्जाम से भाग रहे हैं, हम एग्जाम से भाग. और दूसरी बड़ी बात, मैंने आपको खाली दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी का स्टैटिस्टिक्स इसलिए बताया कि ये दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी की हालत है जहां पे ऑनलाइन क्लासेस नहीं ले पा रहे, ऑनलाइन एग्जाम नहीं दे पा रहे. जिस यूनिवर्सिटी की प्रेस्टिजियस यूनिवर्सिटी जहां पे हमें लगता है कि सबसे ज्यादा सक्षम बच्चे पढ़ते हैं, आप अगर जम्मू कश्मीर की बात करेंगे, आप नॉर्थ ईस्ट जैसी किसी यूनिवर्सिटी की बात करेंगे, मध्य प्रदेश, छत्तीसगढ़, वहां पे बात करेंगे, वहां पे तो कंडीशन इससे भी ज्यादा वर्स्ट है. तो मैं लास्ट में इसी पे अपनी बात खत्म करूंगा कि स्टूडेंट्स के लिए इस टाइम पे कोविड के समय में उनकी जान से बड़ी बात कुछ नहीं है. तो उनकी जान को देखते हुए, उनकी हेल्थ को देखते हुए हमें जो है सरकार को जल्द से जल्द इसके ऊपर जो है फैसला लेना चाहिए, मास प्रमोशंस के ऊपर. थैंक यू.
Thank you, Neeraj. I'd like to read out one comment which has come on the digital divide की बात कर रहे हैं, but ये देवांशु सिंह ने शेयर किया है. उनके यूनिवर्सिटी के एग्जाम्स 5 अगस्त से शुरू हो रहे हैं, and he's saying that he doesn't have right now the means to travel because railway is only operating partially. till 12th of August. So he is not able to, even if he wants to, he can't go. So there are multiple sort of these other factors which are also affecting people's ability to deal with UGC's decision. There's a question that Salman wanted to ask. Salman, if you could go ahead.
Shamli, there are lots of questions in the chat, so maybe we should let those questions go first. I can come in late. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. There's a question from Mudit Agarwal ji. Mudit ji, आप यहीं पर हैं. आप खुद ही पूछ लीजिए. Put it on the chat, but Mudit ji, please go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, put it on the chat. My simple question to the panel was: let's look ahead. See, as I understand, maybe it's quite possible COVID pandemic may not end anytime soon. Given that fact, how can we use this crisis to make fundamental changes to education as well as examination system? As they say, never waits a good crisis to make fundamental changes. So I would just like your views on that. Thank you.
Well, if you remember, sir, when I was HRD minister, I floated the concept of Akash, the tablet.
Yes.
And I'm talking about 2009, where that's 11 years ago. And what was in my mind? I knew that one day India will have to become digital. And I knew that if you could actually build the Akash, get the Akash, and the Akash was just a concept. I thought of it a little tablet, but you could have done this in other forms. So between 2009 and 2020, nobody thought about taking that forward. Now, the question is that if you have to think 10 years ahead, what will India be in 2030? Now, you keep on talking about digital India, but you don't connect to Panchayat Seema. This program started by us, the fiber optic network, the National Fiber Optic Network program was started by us to connect 250,000 Gram Panchayats. This was to be completed by 2013. Now from 2013, we are in 2020 and it's not yet completed because there is no priority and the allocation of monies to the BharatNet now has been reduced. So you talk about digital India, but your allocations you reduce and then you say that, look, we hold online examination. What kind of politics is this? And what kind of universities are these? You can't play around with the lives of kids in this fashion. You want to hold a digital exam, first have digital India, then hold a digital exam. Get children familiar with digital. In fact, when I went to the UNESCO, I made a speech there when I was HRD minister saying that digital literacy should be part of the definition of literacy. I'm talking about 10 years ago. Why was that not taken forward? You're right, this is an opportunity, but it's an opportunity lost. We had an opportunity 11 years ago and we lost it.
I'll just say a small thing. Subal Saab, if you remember, we had an AIPC seminar in which we invited you and we were talking about UG government policy on education. That time also I had mentioned that, in 2014, we had a unique opportunity. We had already laid the infrastructure for digital India was already there. If that time we had really invested in education and combining digital India with education, we could have gone a long way ahead. So maybe we can use this crisis not to do it. Have digital boards in schools is one way.
We should use this crisis. But let me, sir, tell you this, nothing like a teacher. Digital India can aid in education.
Absolutely. That was not
education. Right? Nothing like the inspiration of a teacher in a class, inspiring kids, See, digital India will only connect the child to data which he could never otherwise have connected to. So it will enhance his capabilities, but nothing like a teacher in the classroom. We don't even have teachers in classrooms in this country. One teacher for 90 students. Where are we going? We've never paid attention to education.
I agree that there's no replacement of a teacher, sir. But this problem of students not getting an opportunity for studies can be overcome by digital means, because there is no limit to the amount of students a teacher can teach by digital means. The digital means is going to be the normal. Suppose the COVID lingers on for 3 years. What are we going to do, sir?
Well, I tell you what we should do. We should move fast and ensure that more money should be invested in digital India, give connectivity, get trained teachers. See, for example, I used to give one maths teacher, excellent maths teacher in India, sitting in Delhi, can actually teach a class of 1 million students. That's the power of a digital India. But the question is, there was no priority given to it. We should give it priority. I agree entirely. But again, you can't replace the teacher. But it gives enormous opportunities to millions of students in this country to have access to good teachers, even though they are not physically present there.
They cannot substitute the teacher, they can complement the teacher, these methods.
That's correct, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd like to take one more question that we've received. This is from Dr. Manish Vadera, who's an assistant professor in Jain. His question is, are the UGC guidelines binding or only directional? Because the Rajasthan government had formulated their position prior to the guidelines.
Universities are autonomous institutions. Universities should have the capacity and the will to take their own decisions. Universities cannot and should not be bound by these kind of guidelines issued by the University Grants Commission. Has no control over the decision-making processes of universities. That's controlled by the Academic Council and the Executive Council of Universities, along with the Vice Chancellor. So universities should be able to take their own decisions.
The UGC themselves have said it's an advisory, and they cannot. They tried their best to implement various things in the Aligarh Muslim University, yes, with the Executive Council and Academic Council stymied.
Correct.
I'd like to give you the example of online admissions. The instructions from the UGC was that admissions will be online. Most of the universities said that is not possible, and the whole scheme was buried. So the UGC instructions are only an advisory, and the autonomy of the university cannot be compromised.
I can only say one thing, sir. I can say only one thing, that vice chancellors in universities today are compromised. Universities are not. I'm sorry to say that. And I'm sorry to say that publicly.
No,
because
I think
you have the central government controlling the appointment processes and the universities succumbing to those processes. So the whole autonomy of the university is at stake in this country.
That is why we've always been pressing that the main thing of getting autonomy of a university is that the government should not be involved in the selection of the vice chancellor. Unfortunately, they are. And fortunately, in AMU, they are not. It is the university court which selects the vice chancellor.
Say something on this. Saurabh Sahab, आप बोलिए ना इस पे.
नहीं, आप बोलिए सर. आपका prerogative. As a minister, please, you have experience. Please go.
No. You please. I have said what I had to say.
Okay. No, what I am saying is, let me go back to the autonomy issue. Is this, even today, under the rules of the UGC, the timing of examination and the type of evaluation is in the jurisdiction of the state university. If you take Delhi University or City of Delhi, and there are a couple of universities, you will find that the method of examination and evaluation is different. UGC doesn't come to the picture. They hold the examination at a different point of time. They have autonomy. So I don't think that the university enjoys that autonomy. But at a larger level, I think Civil Saab is sitting here. The education is partly in concurrent lease, which means that part of the power are with the central government. maintenance of standard, coordination of the education, bringing some sort of a uniformity, and rest of it is with the state. But whenever there are issues like this, which cut across the center and the state, we have a forum called CAP committee, where the members are education ministers, school and higher, state education ministers, school and higher education. They come together, the central minister, the minister of the HRD, I have seen a couple of times and share with Kapil Sipalji. You share all those decisions that you want to take their views. Some will oppose, some will favor, but you develop a consensus, take a decision. This is an issue where the Ministry of HRD should hold a meeting with the Minister of Education of the 30 states, develop a common consensus, develop a view and apply for the country as a whole. So the solution might vary between the state. The state of Maharashtra is heavily infected. They will have a different solution. Sikkim will have a different solution. But the decision has to be based on the common consensus. It cannot be imposed because the issue is related to the state.
I entirely agree because we had this forum of the Vice Chancellor's Conference, Kapil Sibal Sahab, you remember, where you gave the Vice Chancellor a lot of time to air their views. Unfortunately, subsequently, in my last 2 years, the Vice Chancellor never got a chance to speak. It was one long harangue by the HRD minister. So it is vital that the UGC consults the Vice Chancellor before taking any important decisions.
Absolutely. And in fact, Thorat Saab, and you will also confirm this, I don't think when we were there, at least when I was there, we ever took a decision unless it was endorsed by everybody.
I vouch for that.
We evolved a consensus. It never happened we took a decision on our own and forced it on the universities. Thorat Saab will support me on that.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I support you too, sir, on that.
Yeah.
I know.
I think that was an interesting conversation on the broader, beyond what we're talking about right now. Before we move, we have 15 minutes left. Before we move to closing remarks, I just want to, anybody on the panel here who has questions, and Salman does. Salman, if you want to start, and then I'll ask Anilji and Abhishek as well if they have any questions.
Thank you, Shamli. I think this has been, frankly, one of the most engaging discussions that I have been a part of. And it helps to bring different voices, to our events. I know that we have Dr. Vinod Chandra from our UP team. He's here, and our Delhi team leaders are here. I encourage you to have panels where there are people with different views. Otherwise, we'll be in an echo chamber and we will not get anywhere. So thank you for this. Now, obviously the focus has been on examinations. And I think there are different formulations that are possible. Of course, some people who could potentially, take examinations safely, they can be allowed to do so. Those who just want their past record to be a reflection of their current situation, they could be given marks on that basis. And then there could be students who might say, we will take examinations once things get better. They should be given an opportunity, perhaps. Maybe there could be a formulation like that. But one thing that is more critical than all of this, I think, is learning. And obviously, during this time, learning has been disrupted. And these months, or possibly a year, maybe 2, we don't know how long, this is not going to come back. Could there be an opportunity where, on a mission mode, we could actually get the learning part right now, and basically tell students that through whatever means possible, whether it's 2G, whether it's 3G, whether it's 4G, you have to participate in these lectures. This will be like continuing medical education for doctors. And just simply by attending, of course, they get to learn. And that could actually be a criteria for their advancement as well, for all those people who can participate, hopefully, even on a 2G network in our own J&K, for example. So learning, what about learning? I know examinations, everybody talks about examinations. To my mind, examinations are the least important element. I think in India, we focus too much on examinations and certification, not enough on learning. Is there an opportunity for that right now? Because that's going to be a big loss if we don't focus on that. Over to you. Thank you.
I agree. I think that we should use this opportunity. The only thing is that we don't have the infrastructure available for taking this forward. I mean, if you come to elite schools in Delhi, they are already holding online classes. But these are only elite schools. How do you hold online classes in some village in Bihar? Where do you get the teacher from? Does he have the training? Where do you get the students from? How do they, you can sit for an exam with the help of a CSC center and a mobile where there is Wi-Fi and connectivity, but how do you learn? You see, it's not easy. So while I agree with you that we should, put systems in place, it's not going to be an easy task.
One of the impediments of learning is the method of examination.
I agree.
I found these objective type questions. It was my experience in the army examinations. The moment we resorted to objective type questions and objective answer, you had to tick yes or no, that was the end of the student analyzing. The power of expression went down, written as well as verbal. So I think we need to have a look at that. These objective type, of course, there can be some, but I think we should not bank totally on objective type tests.
I can share something with you. When I was in the United States of America, I practiced in Wall Street there, but I wanted to become a member of the New York Bar. And I'm talking about the 70s. So in 1977 or 8, I sat for the New York Bar examination. And in the New York Bar examination, we had a mixture of these, yes and no answers. But we had separate papers where we had to write essays precisely in the context of what you said. See, these yes and no answers is fine. It will give you some the response of the student to an issue and how quick his response is. But I think unless this child is grounded on basic knowledge of the subject, which can only happen by allowing him to express himself in an examination through an essay or something of that sort. Otherwise, you'll not be able to build learners in India.
Yeah, I would like to say that hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to say that Kapil Saab, during your period, as a matter of fact, in 2006, 2011, University Grant Commission, when I was a chairman, we had given an advisory to the university on the evaluation method. You are very right that we suggested that, of course, we should have a grading system, credit system, but the written examination part should be reduced to the minimum, and the rest of it should be term papers, writing paper, review of studies, presenting seminar by the students, so that you bring out what is there in the student inside, expand their analytical capacities. I think that is what is the trend towards it. Yes or no question is not going to build up your capabilities and analytical capacity. So, and the semester system. But after having said that, I would like to make one point. The question was raised, what is our priority? You see, learning is a priority, but at the moment, it is very, very important that we give degree to the final year student, complete degree, not a provisional degree. And let him go into the open world, let him apply to the foreign countries, let him apply to IITs, IIM, wherever he wants to go. So give him a degree based on the performance of 5 semester and 2 year. So he's free to build up his career. The rest of the student you promote again on the basis of performance. I think that is the decision which we should take, so that the tension and the crisis will be over.
I think Salman was wanting to raise a larger issue.
Now those who have got degree, yeah, if they
was wanting to take this discussion to another level by raising the larger issue about learning. But let me just give a thought on it. And that is that why is it that the government always wants to control education? why can't a university, you have to set up minimum standards of education. That's the task of government, to set up minimum standards. But how you teach, the manner you teach, how you ultimately reach those standards, let that university decide. Let that college decide. How are you going to get competition in education? How do you get competition between universities, one wishing to excel the other university, unless you give them freedom? And freedom of the university system means freedom to the minds of students. See, ultimately, when students are free to do what they like, you get the real genius of the mind of those fabulous students. That's why we introduced the grading system, and I said, forget about the class 10 boards. But of course, they changed it. The question is, in a class, you will have 30, 40 students. Each student has an expertise in something that the other student does not have. The task of the teacher is to find out the interest of that student in that particular subject where he excels or he or she excels, and allow education in that to move forward by, of course, having a general standard. But if you don't allow that genius of that child to come out, the child will never excel in what he is capable of excelling in, because you are telling the child, you have to sit for this maths exam, you have to sit for this history exam, you have to sit for the... Education globally is changing, completely changing. The focus is on the genius of the child, and the teacher is an enabler. The teacher does not teach, he's an enabler. Enable the child to learn, and he guides the child. That's the task of the teacher. But in India, we want to control the child.
Thank you, Mr. Sibal. Abhishek, if I could just, I believe you have a question, if you could just ask your question as well. Just to introduce, Abhishek joined us a little bit late. He's also one of the vice presidents of DPCC. Welcome, Abhishek.
Good evening, everyone. I think it's a pleasure to hear Kapil Sibalji on a panel like this. I've never interacted with him before. It's really a pleasure. I just have a few points. My first point was, if you look at the university reservation criteria, a lot of seats are blocked for students who come from SC background, SC/ST background, OBC background, and also students with disability. That's approximately 54% students who are studying in these universities. With people with such backgrounds, for them to travel back and give exams will be really difficult. So it's my suggestion, in case NSUI can incorporate that, because when you talk about smartphones, I represent a constituency in Delhi where a lot of PGs are staying, a lot of students who stay in these PGs because they don't get accommodation with Delhi University. Most of them have vacated their houses and have gone back home. I don't think there's any means for them to come back. There are no transportation, there are no buses, there are no trains, and there's a lot of panic. And kids who had these expensive phones by now must have sold it to retain and to maintain their lifestyle. I was reading an article which said that even when Delhi University had sent the study material, it couldn't reach the students. The material came back. And even during mock exam, people who were sitting for a science exam were given papers of another schedule. So I think, keeping COVID in mind, the demand that NSUI has kept forward is very good. And my last suggestion to them is, usually a lot of students like us study hard in the third year, because in the first 2 years, once you get into college, you get fascinated by a lot of things around. Third year is the year where you actually put a lot of effort, because that is your last year when you're crossing the exam. So even a request can be put in that certain grace marks should also be added apart from your performance of first and second year, because if you look at an average performance, your third year performance is always the best out of the 3 years. And my last point, like you were discussing about appointments of VCs, there's a very interesting article in Times of India today by the Pune commissioner. She said police stations are fine, but the appointment of police staff is political, and that is where we suffer. So I'm sure the step that NSUI has taken forward is indeed the most important step at the moment where students are concerned. Proper grace marks should also be given, and kids should not be put into the pressure of giving exam, because people where they are right now, there's a lot of in-between information that they get. There is no clarity in information. And September is a panic year for the students, because a lot of their parents will have to even give their EMI installments. So there'll be a lot of economic burden on the families irrespective, followed by examination pressure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abhishek, for sharing your views as well. I think we're very close to the end of the time that we had. So before wrapping up, I just want to share a couple of things from AIPC's perspective for everybody here. We will, after this discussion, be taking out a white paper on what we have gotten out of this discussion from the eminent speakers that we have, their inputs, and hopefully, we'll be able to make it a solution-oriented white paper. And one more thing that Alim wants to share about AIPC. So Alim, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for such a lovely conversation. I actually wanted to mention to all our esteemed panelists and also our guests that August 2nd, next month, happens to be the 3rd year anniversary of the AIPC. Yes, the All India Professionals Congress is only 3 years old. 3 years before this, we did not exist. We are going to be coming out with Legacy Month. We'll be carrying out a series of activities around important issues such as education, jobs, employment, employability, price rise, COVID, safety, a whole bunch of different issues. And I'd just like to reach out to all our guests and panelists to please be a part of that initiative. AIPC Delhi, AIPC in general, all the members from the North Zone, we encourage you to share your conversations. We look forward to being a part. We look forward to seeing what you'll be able to do. I just wanted to say one particular point. Kapilji had mentioned one point about infrastructure. You have one of the largest growing telecommunications markets in the world. You have Jio, for example. Past 3 weeks, Mukesh Ambani has gone to becoming one of the richest people on the planet in a span of just a few weeks based on smart mergers and based on M&As. But it's telling that BSNL, which is the nation's carrier, which is the breadwinner, so to speak, for most of the government infrastructure because of security issues, only got 4G granted very, very recently. Now, the rest of the country, Airtel, Reliance, they're talking about going into 5G, and BSNL is just getting into the game of 4G. Now, if you come out with a great governmental program, invariably it's going to go to BSNL. If they don't even have 4G connectivity, for someone of my age, it's not competitive. It doesn't make any sense. So there's no value proposition. I think this also goes back to one point that Dr. Tharoor had made when he spoke to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw a little bit earlier about the intersection between industry and education. Education can't be completely a government subsidized activity. So we look forward to having some of these kinds of conversations with you about how industry can come in and help fund some of these activities. If you haven't seen it already, that conversation is also available on our website. Once again, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Alim, and thank you very much to all the panelists for a very, very engaging discussion. Our events team has just messaged to say that we've been able to reach over 12,000 people in this webinar today. To close this out, I'd like to call upon Smita Mishra to give a vote of thanks, and then we can wrap.
Thank you, Shamli, and that was quite an engaging and fascinating event. And I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our guest speakers who graced this webinar with their luminous presence. And Honorable Shri Kapil Sibal ji and Professor Sukhdev Throat, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah, and Shri Neeraj Kundan. Thank you so much for gracing this webinar. And I would also like to thank our Chairman, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, our Vice Chairman, Mr. Salman Soz, and our COO, Mr. Alim Zaveri. Under their valuable and indispensable guidance, AIPC is flourishing to new heights. And last but not the least, I would like to congratulate and extend my gratitude to the entire team, Yogesh, Shamli, Roshan, Avni, Prashant, Ashish, Vijayaraj, Manik, Jeet, Noor, and also the National Herald team. I'm sorry I missed DPCC President Anil Chaudhary ji and VP Abhishek Datta ji and Mudit ji. And yes, and thank you for all the viewers for making it a big success. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We're wrapping up right on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Sibal wants to say something, is it? Mr. Sibal, you are muted. Mr. Sibal is muted. All right. Okay.